Now in lesson 14, part 2, we're on page 124. And in this lesson, we're actually going to be calculating the slope. So we're going to calculate how steep the line is. This graph represents the amount that Brad pays his parents back each week for money that he borrowed. Describe the relationship between the number of weeks and the amount he still owes. What is the slope of the line and what does it represent? So we know that we're going to be talking about weeks and the amount that's owed. And they've shown us a graph, a table, and a second graph. So first, our question says, number 7, look at the graph. What type of relationship do the two quantities have? So think about what we talked about in the first part. Is it going to be varying or is it going to be constant? So is this a constant or varying rate? And it will be constant because it is linear. And remember, linear means that it's a straight line. So just because it's going down doesn't mean it's not linear. It's not proportional when it's going down, but it is linear. So part 8 says, look at the first 2 ordered pairs on the table. By how much does the amount still owed change? By how much does the number of weeks change? So if I look back at my table, we're looking from the first point. It went from 1 to 2. So the number of weeks increased by 2, but the amount he still owed decreased by 6. So after 2 weeks, he paid back $6. So he owes his parents $6 less. So every time he pays them back, he owes less money. So by how much did the amount still owed changed? It changed by -6. And by how much does the number of weeks change? The number of weeks changed by 2. So when we find slope and rate of change are the exact same thing, as we can see here in just a second. It wants to know the change in the amounts that are owed. And so the amount that he owed was -$6 for 2 weeks. So he paid back $6 in 2 weeks, which will simplify to -3 over 1. Slope is also called the vertical change. Remember, vertical is the up and down, and the horizontal change. Horizontal is sideways. So in this question, if we look back, we can see that they drew a triangle, and it went down $6 every time 2 weeks passed. And notice that pattern continues. Every time it goes down 6 over 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Down 6 over 2 weeks. So when we find slope, we draw that triangle. We put the vertical change over the horizontal change. Notice that this is still y over x, like we talked about back with proportional relationships. So even though this is not proportional, we're still doing the y divided by x, and we will still get, when we divide, -6 divided by 2, we will still get -3 over 1 when it simplifies. Sorry, I made the 3 a little bit prettier. -3 over 1. So our next question, number 10, says, what does the slope represent and why is the slope negative? The slope represents the rate of change. So what does it represent? The amount he owes changes at a rate of -3, and I guess we could put a dollar sign on front of that, -$3 each week. And why is it negative? Because the amount that he owes is going down because he's paying it back. So it is negative because how much he owes, let's say how much he still owes, because how much he still owes is decreasing each week. Oh, I don't know what just happened. Give me a second to fix that. It just skipped ahead to the last page. I have no idea what I hit to make it skip all that way. So each week. Number 11, at what point does the line meet the y-axis? What does this point represent in terms of the situation? So if I go back up here and look at my graph at the y-axis, remember the y is the up and down, I can see the y-axis is right between 42 and 48. So it's right between 42 and 48. And that's kind of hard to see because it's not on any of our graphs either. But exactly between 42 and 48 is 45. So the y-axis is 45. And at 0, that means $45 in 0 weeks. So what does this represent in terms of the situation? In terms of this situation, $45 is how much he borrowed originally. So he started owing his parents $45 and then he started paying it back, and the graph shows the rate that he paid it back. Now try question number 12 and check it with the video. When it says what is the rate of change in the slope, that makes it kind of easy for you because rate of change and slope are both the exact same thing. So I'm trying to find a color that will stand out on here. So I know that he is driving home. So his distance from home, the distance remaining is going to go down because he's getting closer and closer and closer. So I can draw my triangle here, and I know this is a negative, so my slope is going to be something negative. And I will go down from 300 to 250. That's going to be negative 50. So the change, I've got two negatives. Give me 1 second. So it's going to be negative 50 over 1 hour. So negative 50 over 1 will simplify to just negative 50. If you had drawn a bigger triangle, one cool thing about slope is if you have done it bigger, it's still going to simplify to the same thing. This would be negative 100 in 2 hours, and negative 100 divided by 2 is still going to turn into negative 50. And it says, what does it represent? That represents he's 50 less miles from home each hour. So every hour he gets 50 miles closer to his house. So every hour the distance away from his house goes down. All right, now we're ready to practice.